What?
What's in there?
I know, right? There's a Starbucks cup in there. All right, welcome to Small Town Charm. My name's Daniel. We got Mike and Chris here. This is our first episode officially, so I thought it would be important for us to introduce ourselves. And then as we're recording this, last night was the October Planning Commission meeting. They do two a month, right?
No, one.
Just one? Okay. Yeah, so they did their October meeting last night, and there was some interesting things happening. So we're going to talk about that and drink some beer and kind of see what happens. But first, again, we should introduce ourselves since this is our first episode. My name's Daniel Hadaway. I've lived in Nolensville for about 7 years. Lived in a couple of different neighborhoods around Nolensville. I have a wife and a son. Yeah, we love Nolensville. We moved here because it was the cheapest way to get into Williamson County schools and still have a nice place to live, in our opinion. And then after we moved here, we kind of fell in love with the town. So we can talk about that stuff later, though. Chris, introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Chris Going. I've lived here 7 or 8 years. Wasn't an official Nolensville resident until this year. I actually lived in Silver Stream. Kind of a tongue-in-cheek joke, though. Been made fun of a lot for that over the years. People probably know me from Mill Creek Brewing. I started that in my garage and kind of grew it up. Actually, with the help of your wife. That's how you and I got to know each other.
Yep.
And yeah, now I live in Bent Creek. Proud Nolensville resident. And happy to be here.
Awesome. Mike.
Yeah, so Mike Lushek. Lived in Nolensville for like 4 years, going on 5. Married, 4 kids. Chris just found out after 4 years of friendship that I have a dog. I have a dog named Mike. Call him Mikey Boy. We adopted him with the name. We did not. I'm not that self-centered. Yeah, I run the Nolensville Insider. I'm a write-in candidate. Illegitimately, my votes will not count, but I did go today with the sticker. Oh no, I left my sticker. Oh. I did go and cast the very first vote for myself ever. That's kind of cool.
Since you're introing yourself, though, I gotta ask, how do you spell your last name?
Luszczek. Just like it sounds, dude.
If I think someone mentioned like it's a kind of like loose check for Americans, maybe to think of it that way.
Right.
Only because it helps me remember that the S comes first. For me, and then I'm like, you can spell check anywhere you want to.
Yeah.
Z, that, and then I'm good from there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're a writing candidate. I know why you're doing that, but I think it'd be interesting to maybe hear a little bit about what that's about. Or I'll tell you what, let's talk about that in a little bit. Okay. I think earlier I decided that we should wait because there's probably a more pressing matter that we agreed to not talk about
until the cameras
were rolling.
Yeah.
And that is our name of our show. Small Town Charm is funnily enough, like I was at Public Forum the other night and then I was at the Planning Commission meeting last night, and between those two events I think I heard the word Small Town Charm,
yeah,
I mean dozens of times.
Yeah,
it's like the favorite thing, which is why we chose the name, kind of ironically, because our perspective is probably a little more I don't know what the right word is. It's not sarcastic necessarily. Trying to humorous maybe is the right word. Seeing the irony in a word like Small Town Charm with how nuts this town is.
Right.
But we've heard some people complain might be the right word. Question why we chose this name when we found out. I genuinely did not know there was a store in town named Small Town Charm until I heard from them.
Then you got a C&D?
Yeah. But it led me down a path, and so we decided to debate the merits of our name first
within each other.
Yeah,
because we got asked to take it down or like change our name completely, tweak it so it's not the same. So I figured, I'm assuming, like I know the both of you, I know that we will have different opinions on what we should do or how we should do it, and I think it would be really entertaining to actually tape it instead of like trying to decide and then explain to a camera. I think it would be really cool to debate it and then go from there.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's important to, like, for listeners to understand, we actually already have debated this a little bit. I think we've been debating it internally through text all day. And I just think it's important to say that from the spirit of like, it's easy for people to think that we just come off as trolls or we're just like super opinionated or one-sided. Like, we actually do have hearts.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
and we do genuinely like care about our town and care about the people here and the businesses here. And so I think, yes, we're doing this in the spirit of like some entertainment, but also like we think it's important to like get the merits out there and see where we lay.
Yeah, and I think no matter what, you know, if we were to land on, and this may be boring to people, so we don't have to do this for too long, but like I do think that if we decide to keep the name, that you know, I don't mind. I think it's important, especially because we are going to talk a lot about Nolensville, but I think a lot of what we're talking about is not unique to Nolensville. It's very much about small towns and how this is probably, as much as I think this town is bananas, I think that like probably most towns our size with a history like our town has, they probably have similar issues and similar like types of dynamics that you see happen like politically and stuff. And so, but you know, we know that we live here in Nolensville, and so I think I wouldn't mind like, you know, making there be a disclaimer at the beginning, you know, because I don't want to harm the business, and I don't think it is a harm. If we kept the name,
it would help her.
Yeah,
it would definitely help because people were talking about it, right? And then as soon as people were talking about it, there's initially some type of reaction, and then there's an explanation. But then at least you know the name.
Right.
Like, we lived here for like 4 years. I've never heard of this place.
Yeah.
I know about it now.
Sure.
But so I have like a more internal struggle with this because I do feel like, I mean, she doesn't want to be part of the drama. It's kind of weird to me because we haven't released an episode.
No.
We haven't given out a description of what this is about. We haven't said anything with that name attached. And there's people that are calling her and DMing her, like complaining about us three being on a podcast together. Mm-hmm. Like the hate of that is surreal, and it's like symbolic of the small town charm. This is why I was on board with small town charm, because people use it as this like this fairy tale concept, but in reality it's like this toxic behind the scenes constant struggle and jabs, right? Because this is what, like, we literally named our podcast Small Town Charm, and there's people behind the scenes that are trying to cancel us, like the Nolensville version of a cancel, right?
Yeah.
And but I'm torn because I would love nothing more than not to keep this woman out of it and just completely like let her live her life and never has to worry about us. We don't have to worry about her. But man, letting somebody win like that, like it would be a huge pill to swallow.
Yeah.
Because that's a loss at this point, right? Because it's personal, because they took action first against it, and if I buckle down and say, well, you know, fine, I'm defeating, right? I'm taking the white flag and I'm going, you win this round. Like, I just tend not to do that.
I think for me, like, there's kind of two angles to this. One, you guys know this, but a lot of other people may not know it, but like, I really care about like the legal aspect of things, right? And so I think there's a rub for me on the legal side, which is that like she does not have a trademark on the phrase or even the name. And I think we did some research and kind of figured out that small town charm's used by a lot of businesses around the country.
Yeah. Got a list. I'll bring a list up in a minute.
Yeah. So I mean, even if we were going to talk about, you know, just like the trademark usage of just like being first to market and her being here in Nolensville first, like we're not actually operating a brick and mortar business.
Well, and you know, trademarks only apply to like a vertical, like a type of business.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
If we opened a shop based on our podcast,
Right.
that would be a valid claim.
So what happens if we want to start selling merch eventually?
Well,
Maybe we'll sell it in our shop.
Yeah.
You know, maybe that's what we'll do.
There you go.
I mean,
Yeah, I'd love to have the problem
Yeah.
that we're being asked to sell so much merch that we need to cross that. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's a good problem to have. So
but I think the other angle for me is just the way that it was approached. And I to echo you, Mike, you know, like there is a lot of kind of just like backroom hate that's being tossed about in town. over something that nobody's ever seen. They just assume.
Are you trying to say that if it wasn't the three of us, that maybe the name wouldn't be as much of a problem?
Yeah, I kind of do feel that way. Like they saw who posted things and they immediately just made some assumptions about what the context and the content of the podcast was going to be, or the purpose of it. And then there's kind of like the added level, which is, I don't know. I just like kind of felt personally slighted that like she reached out to you. And it's not because I have anything personal against you, Daniel.
I'm the least known of the three of us in town, though.
But and I think you're probably also considered the most reasonable.
Yeah,
if we're just going by like
you're the one with the heart.
If we're just using like social media as a measuring standard, but it's just the fact that like Mike and I get a bad rap because we are politically outspoken, and you are too, to be fair. But like you didn't start a blog like Mike did. And maybe you haven't said some like borderline rude things like I have, and I'll admit that.
You mean the truth?
Yeah. I mean,
so rude.
You can be nice. You can be nice. You can be nice about it.
Yeah. But I think from that angle, it's just it smells a little less like a business owner like raising her hand and saying, "Hey, like I think that this is wrong," and more like, "Hey, I'm on a certain side."
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of disagree with that. I think that there's an obvious, and for people that follow politics in this town, like even a little bit, or on the 401 for a split second, they know that there's obvious sides, and they know that there's a constant battle and little jabs back and forth, right? So like if somebody comes up online or in a meeting, they like people know who stands on which side, right?
Yeah.
And I think that the pressure from the people that don't like me or don't like you or don't like Better Knownsville, because you were the face of it, automatically they freaked her out. And it's like, they're going to ruin your name. It's like, dude, like you haven't even seen a single millisecond of the clip. Like we could have been talking about how to knit, pillows or something. But the assumption is these people are evil. You have to tell them to not use your name. And it's not so much as like, the name thing is just stopping it, right? They're trying to prolong it, and like it's coming. We have to hinder it somehow so it's not as impactful.
Well, that's speaking of like knitting. That's my frustration. Is actually there is a podcast that involves knitting and embroidery. That's one of the.
If we did that, we would get sued.
Well, there's a weekly sew along event. There's a podcast called Something Else.
Okay.
But they have a weekly event they do like live on YouTube, and I think it's called Small Town Charm.
Yeah.
So there's that. But like, I mean, there's again, I have a list. I'll read them all to you just so we can get this out of the way one time.
Yeah.
There's a novel, a pretty popular novel called Small Town Charm by Carolyn Brown. There's an Etsy shop. There's a T-shirt shop called smalltowncharmco.com. There's a women's blazer named Small Town Charm that's really popular. There's a line of embroidery patterns. There's the weekly event I already mentioned on a podcast. There's a scented candle by the Georgian Artisan shop called Small Town Charm. There's actually another gift shop in Alabama called Small Town Charm.
Did you tell that lady about it?
No, I haven't read it up, but I'll get to that. But there's a blouse for women, obviously, that's called that. There's a series of blog posts about shops in Texas. So again, about shops, gift shops, things like that, called Small Town Charm. There's a couple of different companies. One called Nowlin Small Town Charm, and another one called Angie Small Town Charm, both in Kentucky. There's a Small Town Charm LLC in Florida. There's a family home in Wisconsin, and it's the town slogan for the city of Orange, Texas. And I wonder when all of this came out, or when these other businesses established themselves, how many of them got a message, asking them to change their name from the shop owner here in town. I think it's more that we live here in town, but like you don't have like a territory exclusive on like a name. And again, it's I did try to explain in talking with them that it's a disambiguation of a common phrase. There's a reason why Kleenex didn't name their business facial tissue. If you named your business facial tissue, you would not have a legal claim to that name, and you'd have to accept that somebody else could also name their business facial tissue, even if it's not facial tissue. And so we understand when we name this podcast that someone else might come behind us and start another business somewhere with this name. We're not going to go after them.
Right.
And we're not going after, we wouldn't expect any shop to go after us for a podcast. Now, our trademarks are, number one, valid when you use them.
Yep.
Regardless of when you're granted one. So we have a copyright and trademark on Small Town Charm as soon as we publish this episode.
Right.
As far as media and podcasts go. And we would have a valid claim against anybody else who were to put out media with that name. I offered a lot of things to help clear the air and constantly clear the air to make sure no one's confused about that they're not related with us. If they don't want to be related to us, we'll make sure people know that as many places as possible.
Yeah.
But that was not acceptable. And at the end of the day, there's just not an alternative that I think.
Yeah. So what you're saying though is in the conversations today with the shop owner, I think you had told me earlier, like you had offered to change our name of our Facebook page to Small Town Charm Podcast.
Yeah.
Which subsequently we actually have that on Instagram.
Right.
Because somebody else already owns Small Town Charm on
Right,
Instagram.
yeah.
So like we'd already made that change. So it wasn't that big of a deal for us to change it. But you were willing for us to like refer to it publicly anywhere we talk about the podcast as Small Town Charm Podcast.
I offered to change the logo.
Yeah. And I think you said you also offered to like have a disclaimer at the beginning of every episode. That we were not associated with the shop.
I free ads. I mean, that's at that point you got to start charging.
Yeah,
but she wouldn't go for it.
No. I offered to add to our bio on social media everywhere we are. The first line would be, we're not associated with the shop in Nolensville.
I probably wouldn't be okay with that because that's like free ad. That's like every time we make a comment, every time we do something that gets any type of traction, her name's out the whole time. I'm cool with the podcast. Just so you guys know, I'm cool with whatever you guys want to do. I do the least amount of work, and this setup, like I legitimately came in, I get on my phone, I looked at my computer, and you guys were running around making everything perfect, right?
Yeah.
So whatever you guys want to do, I'm cool with it. But I'm like, if you guys want to stick with it, I'm always ready for a war.
I think my opinion is we stick with it for a lot of reasons that we already said. I'm probably going to get dragged for saying this, but I'm going to say it because I just think it needs to be said. Like, I do think that it's a little humorous to me, maybe in like a bad humor way, but that somebody freaked out about a podcast that had not released any content and had 8 followers on Facebook, that a business that's been open 8 years, that their brand would be destroyed by us overnight.
Right.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
I don't know. Like, I mean, maybe we're that powerful.
Well, I don't want to. That's the thing. I
don't really think so. Though.
One of my biggest fears, I don't want it, and I don't think we are, but I also don't want people to think that we are.
Right.
Like they say, punching down. Which, like, I don't think that's fair to think that we're punching down.
She's been here for like 8 years. She's got like 3,500 Instagram followers.
Yeah.
I would not be. If I were in her position, I would not be afraid. And that goes back to what I said earlier, why it feels a little bit like it's coming from an ulterior motive.
Well, I will tell you that I did try to explain, and this might be another part of it, that who knows who's told her, or maybe she has her own opinions about what we represent. But I did explain that, like, the reason why we chose the name is partially to be like a satire of the concept. And she said that they take the idea of Small Town Charm very seriously. And so I think maybe just the idea that we would attempt to, like, poke fun at a concept or this town in some way, I think that might have been part of why she's upset. Maybe upset's not the right word. Why she wanted us to change.
That resonates with me a little bit more. Like if it's offending to her because she poured a ton of time into it, into the concept that she holds dear, and I mean she's 100% right. Like, we are going to make fun of the Small Town Charm concept, right?
Yep.
Like, I'm 100% motive here is to point out all the fakeness that comes with the small town concept.
Sure.
So if if that's the case, then she has a very legitimate reason to be upset. And I probably, like, on the flip side, I would be upset too.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think though that like there's different ways you can express love for something, and I think that I don't know if I know both of you guys love this town more than anything. You can't get as upset about things that happen in this town. And that's true for people who strongly disagree with us, that we might even personally think that we dislike. They still do actually love this town, or an idea of what this town is, or idea of what this town was at some point, whatever that is.
Right.
And so I certainly understand, someone's perspective who says, "How dare you make fun of this town or intricacies of this town or the government or whatever it is?" But at least
I don't think anybody has a bigger right than the three of us to make fun of the
right. Exactly. Well, I think that that's like part of like the American way almost, is you get to in some cases I feel like I have a maybe even a calling to like bring some humor and like make fun of some things. So it sounds like we're all debating, but we're all kind of on this. Well, Mike is passive.
I'm passive. So I don't want to make it sound like I'm forcing you guys to take on an issue that you don't necessarily care about. I don't care about it, other than I will publicly admit it is a very self-centered, selfish reason why I don't want to change the name. And it's nothing to do with the store, nothing to do with where we are. It's 100% to do with the people that are behind the scenes freaking this woman out about the name. And I refuse to. Well, I don't refuse. Personally, like internally, I refuse to swallow that pill. But if you guys choose a different direction, I'm okay with that.
I mean, I'm gonna say we keep it, but for a different reason, which is strictly like the law says that we can. And I just like, what's the point of having laws if you're not going to follow? I know it is. So,
and I definitely,
but like that's 100%. Like, there's no reason to have a law that protects like free speech and trademarks and copyright and all that kind of stuff if it's not utilized.
I do generally think that we're not going to cause her any harm. I think that's something that helps her. If for the people that hate us and think that we're going to ruin her store, they're going to rally around her and shop there more.
Yeah.
And for the people that never heard about it, they'll check it out. Like, it's like
if you hate us, go shop at her store.
Right. Yeah. And to me, if this thing ever becomes like popular and like people actually like watch it and listen to it, then cool. Like, why doesn't she come on and promote her store? Like, we'd be happy to have her.
Or debate us on what small town charm is.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'd even like drop two of us out, so it could be a one-on-one thing. So it doesn't feel ganged up on.
Mike can go and do that.
Well, I think I definitely belong sitting between the two of you, because I think I have like part of it is I think another angle on what you said, which is if there are certain people who feel threatened by just the idea of us making a podcast where we might be a little unfiltered in what we say. And I think I would be surprised if some of the people who've already been confused about this and reached out to her are not some of those people. I don't think there's as much confusion out there amongst really plugged in people as they might even perceive there is.
There's 100% a freak out going on, and it's funny because it's not like none of us caused it, right? So the cause of the freak out is that ever since Better Knownsville happened, there's been a switch, right? So the people that are like really for Better Knownsville, like initially, kind of turned on a concept, right? And now are completely against the people that do serve the Better Knownsville Board of Commissioners, and they're freaking out because we're consistent. We hold the same values we held before. We say the same exact things we said before. We practice the same exact philosophy we did before, and they know what they've told us before, and they know how everything panned out. And it's like, crap, now Mike and Chris have a microphone in front of them and a camera, and Mike has 3,000 followers on Facebook, and Chris runs a marketing company. Like, this could really blow up in my face if they come out and say like, I did this and this and this, and then it turned out to be a lie, and that's why I don't like him anymore. Like, that's a big freak out.
They don't want to come out and say, don't listen to that podcast, we're scared of it. They'll say, oh, I'm confused, you have a bad name. It's
because we're a machine,
right?
We're a political machine.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah. Well, but the other side, again, like I said, I'm in the middle of the two of you physically, and like my position, which is also I do agree with you, which is like there's a reason why these laws exist, and it's very clear. There's not even like a claim you could make against
Right.
this. It's so like we're separate in so many ways. Mike is wants to keep the name on principle of not backing down, but also I think you're passive. You if we really wanted to change it, you'd be fine with it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay. Chris, you want to keep it.
Yep.
And I want to keep it. So we'll keep it.
We're keeping it.
Cheers. You don't have
Done.
one.
I don't have one. Can you give me one?
Yeah.
Yeah, you want one of these? Yeah, hold it.
I don't feel like going up there.
Yeah, open that and then we'll do it.
There you go.
And then we'll move on to it. We got 2 more topics to cover tonight. So cheers.
Small Town Charm
Small town charm.
podcast on Instagram.
Not a candle, not a blouse, and not a store.
Not a sewing event.
Nope.
Okay.
I do think I'm going to say it again, but like I do think it's really important for people to understand. Like we tried.
Yeah.
We tried to peacefully.
So like I was 100%. I was 100% honest.
Yeah.
When I say like this is hands on. I just started a business. I have 4
Yeah.
kids. I'm like I will do the podcast, but my assumption was I come in and I make a few jokes. Both of you are doing so much behind the scenes, and it's kind of entertaining to me because I was in your shoes. Like I started a blog that was ripping fire through the town, so I know what it feels like when somebody you want to be nice, but like the person's being unreasonable. Like
Yeah.
I know 100% how it feels like. So I'm sitting at home going through the text and I'm like, oh, this is beautiful.
Yeah, but I also know, like, I wonder, like, and we'll leave it alone. But like, I do wonder, like, if she thinks she's being unreasonable, if she kind of knows what she's asking is a stretch, and like, it's like, well, you got to try though, right? Like, I would try. If I were her, I'd try. I'd be like, hey, change the name.
Sure.
Yeah, you know what I mean. So it's not like I don't think whatever. We'll move on. All right. So really quickly, because we have to get to talking about the planning commission meeting, but we need to hear about. I think it's important for everyone to know about why you're running as a write-in candidate.
Right.
Let's take a quick break because we got to reset some cameras, and then I'll ask you about that.
I'll be here. I'm
Cool.
not over.
Okay.